Welcome back, everyone. This is Blue Dolphin with 𝕊𝕬𝕣𝕪 Security, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you something I recently learned about called the Poetry Python Packaging and Dependency Manager, or PDM for short. Let's get into it. Alright, jumping right into things here. To be honest, I actually didn't know anything about poetry until recently, as I was setting up a platform called the 𝕊𝕤𝕤𝕪 Vulnerability Management Platform, and I had to install poetry as a part of a new vulnerability engine module called Notice, which is a local security checker. And anyways, I really went down this Python poetry path. So in short, it's a packaging and dependency manager. So it goes without saying that when it comes to making a Python project, it can be very overwhelming because you have so many packages and types of files, configuration files, setup files that you need to incorporate and have key information in. And if you do have a Python project and it has a lot of packages or dependencies and dependencies with dependencies, it can be very hard trying to make them all work together and to make sure you have the right versions at the right time. And this is what poetry aims to solve. So if we look at the website here, and where this whole video is going to go is I'm just going to talk about poetry, and then I'm going to show you what it looked like when I set it up, and we're just going to play around with it a little on my machine, and I'll show some basic commands here, how to create a poetry project, what type of files you can expect to see, and what they'll look like. All right, looking at the website here, you can see they have some examples of what it's going to look like, but what's important is that you can build your package with ease with a simple command, poetry build, and poetry publish. You can publish your poetry project to a private repository. So if we're working on a project together, I could use poetry and I could just focus on getting all the packages and dependencies that you need and making any version updates or configuration changes to those dependencies and packages. So when you go to run our project locally, as say my colleague, you could just clone my poetry package, and that way I could push out different versions of modules, certain configuration files, or certain files to go with different packages, and it makes things really handy. Of course, here you can see on the website that they even have an option to check the state of your dependencies. So you do poetry show tree, and it's going to show you what tools you have, which is super cool here. All right, let's jump in to the specifics of things here. Now, if you haven't set up a Python project before and that doesn't make any sense to you, you don't really know what that means, hey, that's fine. Don't turn the video off. I'm going to show you what that kind of looks like. So here is a Linux tool called PSF Black, and this is a binary. It's a Python project, I guess I should say, and it simply helps you with your code review, right? So if we look at the project here, we're going to see certain types of files, and this is where things can get really hard. So we're gonna start off with, I think there's kind of 5 files I'm going to quickly touch on, and these are files that I think can often be a struggle and can tie up a lot of resources. This is going to be the setup.py file, so I want to talk about that, the requirements.txt, the setup.cfg, manifest.in, and then of course the pip profile. And then after this, I'll show you what some of the Python poetry files look like and how it solves this. So if we start off with just our setup.py file, of course, this is a Python file that indicates the modules and packages you're about to install. So if you downloaded a Python project or cloned the repo from GitHub, you'd simply browse into that project and type pip install setup.py. And if it has that setup.py file, it's going to install. And if we look through here, this is going to just indicate what you are indeed about to install. So you can see here it uses init.py, and it defines these different names of scripts within the package. And if we go to the bottom here, we'll see that there are some classifiers and some listed Python versions here. So this is fantastic, pretty standard. Next, we're going to have the requirements.txt. So again, this is test. Okay, I don't see requirements.txt, but I see test requirements.txt. So you can see here it's saying, you're going to need py test xdist, and that's great. That really is. Next, we're going to have setup.cfg. So this is a file that just lets you set your configuration file. So you can see here that setup requires setup tools, Tom1, and this version. then we'll have the setup.cfg contains like configurations for the setup.py file. And next we have manifest.in, which specifies specific metadata for company files. There's really nothing here, just proven profiling. Then we have pipfile, which I don't even think is going to be here. But the pipfile is just is a dedicated file for project dependencies. Now, what makes Poetry special, and what does it do for us? Well, it's going to create two files when you create your own Poetry folder. And to do that, you're literally just going to install Poetry and do Poetry. It's as simple as new. You're just going to do Poetry new and the name of your project. And you're going to see two files appear. You're going to see pyproject.toml, and you're going to see Poetry lock, which I'll show in just a second here. So if we take a look at myproject.toml, you can see here it specifies the tool, some specific configurations to go with it, and it continues to show all the tools that we're going to need. Now, if we want to take a look at what the poetry.lock file looks like, here's another tool. This is a Python Poetry Docker example, and this is the poetry.lock file. In the poetry.lock file, it's going to show all the packages that we need. So to review, we're going to have the .toml file, which is going to have our tools and then some details on those tools. Then we're going to have our .lock file, which is just simply going to list out all our packages. But it's also going to have package dependencies, which is very important because sometimes dependencies have dependencies, as we can see as we go through this, package dependencies. Okay, so now that we've talked about the .toml and the .lock file, which again are these two here, and I'll have links down in the description and a little write-up talking more about them down below. But just to recap, .tom file, I'm going to call it .tom to keep it simple, has more information, it's more in-depth about all the packages your Python project needs, whereas the .lock file is like a high-level overview. Hey, what packages you got? All right, let's jump into things a little bit now and talk about creating our own project. I'm going to bring us over to a Kali Linux distro here, where I've gone ahead and I've actually installed following the instructions. So the first thing that you do is, again, the instructions are below in this video, in the comments, check them out. The first thing we do is use sudo curl, and we're going to target the repo, download the metadata, and it's installed. From here, we are directed to make a environment call, which I have done. But after the install, I ran Poetry version just to confirm it installed properly. Then I did an environment add, and you can see here I have the environment variable, which is it's somewhere in here. Oh, there it is. Home Kali Poetry bin, right there. So we have the Poetry environment variable. What we'll do now is over in this window, I've just simply run Poetry. If you run Poetry, it's going to immediately give you all the commands that you, of course, could be using. But the one that we want to start with is going to be new. And what this is going to do is just like it says, create a new Python project at path. So we're going to go, let me actually create a directory. And we'll call this Poetry project. And here we're going to type Poetry new, my project. And you can see it just like that. It created a project, and it created a package, my project, and my project. So I could have given it a different name so we could differentiate between the project and the package within the project. But let's take a look. Let's jump in our directory, and you'll see here we have that .toml file. So if we actually cat that out now, you can see in here we have a project named my project and a dependency of Python. And that's it. We need to do a little information here and pad this a bit for our project. And again, this is going to kind of be our file where we can use as a central location to manage all that stuff that we're going to need. I'm just seeing if I can make the text bigger here. There we go. I'm going to zoom in, maximize the screen. And yeah, just to recap again, the pyproject.tom file is kind of going to be the central resource for us. So if we take a look at our README file, there's not a whole lot there, obviously. If we look under test, which is by default, there's just the test my project and the init.py. But let's look under my project here. You can see we have init.py, and it just gives us a version. All right. What we need to do now is, after having created this, is we will need to add some dependencies or packages, of course. And the way we can do this is simply by going poetry, add, and a project name. So we could type pycurl, for example, and it looks like it's creating a virtual environment, as you can see, and it's using version 7.45.1 for pycurl. It has resolved the dependency. It is now the package operations. Let's take a look at what it's doing. It's installing py parsing, attr, more iterator tools, packaging, plugin, py, all this stuff. But then we have an issue here. And it looks like our issue is that Python setup did not run successfully. And it wants us to use a packaging.version instead. I'm hoping if I run sudo, this will fix this, but I don't see anything to do with permissions. Failed. So what it says is failed to add packages, reverting the pyproject.tom file to its original content. So again, when we add this project, it automatically takes this package and puts it in that TOML file. So let's try this again. And I'm going to do sudo. Hopefully this works. It'll be embarrassing. It didn't work. All right, that's fine. Let's keep moving on. Let me just try actually. So there's our poetry.lock file. So let's actually take a look at it. And you can see here we have a lot has populated. Everything that was a part of the pycurl we see appearing in here. So you can see atomic rights and at the top here, and now we start getting into all the dependencies that come with pycurl, which of course the package is listed here. And very cool stuff. And then we have metadata files at the bottom. Awesome. Let's take a look at our pyproject.tom file. And we can see everything is the same. All right, let's try running the build command. I'm curious to see what will happen with a default file. So it says it's building my project, and it looks like it has finished building the project. Great, so wonderful. We now have a distribution of my project. That's amazing. Let's cat my project. I guess we can't really cat it because it's obviously a binary file. It's not just a text file. So we can see here it's a zip archive data, and there's the zip. So it's a .whl, but this is our final file here. But let's go ahead and try listing to see what we've actually added to this package. And the way we can do that is with poetry list. No, sorry, I think I got it wrong. I think it's poetry show tree. There we go. Awesome. So look at this. We can now see what we've added to our project. In this case, our poetry project, we have within pytest, we have atomic rights, which is a dependency, att, colorama, so on and so forth. But I haven't added these. These were there as a part of the test. I tried to do pycurl and it didn't work. But let's go ahead and try adding another library. But I just want to point out that that's kind of the gist of it, what you've seen here. However, I'd really like to provide a live demonstration, so I'm just going to struggle through this with you, the viewer, for the next handful of minutes or so. And if I can get it, great. If I can't, I'll wrap things up because I don't want this video to drag on, but I really want to give you, the viewer, a first-hand look at poetry from a noob's perspective. I'm a noob with this. Okay. Let's try this again. Let's do, what would be a good one? Let's just try requests. So we can see here it's running package operations, and wonderful, looks like requests actually work. So let's take a look at our files now. So of course we're going to have poetry.lock, which is like the high level overview. And in here we should see requests. There it is, package requests. Package dependencies, you can see here, and these are package dependencies for the requests package. And then we have extras. Then you can see as a part of requests, URL-lib3 was added, and then Python extras. Very cool. So we can see now that these packages and dependencies are listed in our .log file. Now what we'll do is we'll take a look at the tom file, and you can see here we have the clean mean information here. Tools for the poetry dependency for my project are Python and requests. Wow, that is totally cool. And you can use this to really help you with your projects and bring everything together in one. Let's play around with some of the other commands. We can do poetry about, which just says package management for Python, and it's a dependency manager tracking local dependency of your projects and libraries. Of course, we tried the build command. Let's go ahead and try the poetry cache command. What will this do? So it just lets us interact with the cache. So that's pretty interesting. We can also use a check command. So let's do poetry check. Says we're all set. Then we could try poetry config, for example. Did I get that right? Let me just look at the options here. Yep, I did config. Wonderful. It didn't do anything. Looks like we can install the project dependency. So if we wanted to, we could just go poetry, install. No dependencies to install or update. So what we have to do is, because we haven't added the requests package to our my project, we're gonna have to build that. So we'll go poetry build, and there we go. And now I bet if we go poetry install, it's going to install, although I probably already have requests installed. Let's just take a quick look. Jumping over into the distribution, we'll cap my projects. Yeah, we don't see anything in here. I was just curious to kind of take a look. But let's go ahead now, and so we could do poetry lock if we wanted to, for example, lock the dependencies. No, actually, I'm hoping I can unlock them. Oh, I might have to look around how to unlock them. Hopefully I can still use it. But we could also create a new one. Say, we appreciated doing this, we wanted to create a new folder. So we could actually, in poetry project here, we could create another one and call it poetry new test project number 2. And there we go, we have test project number 2. So now we can start adding our packages in here. So we'll jump into test project number 2, and we'll say poetry add requests. And it's going to add requests, of course. We'll just let that finish here. But as someone who hasn't used this before, or a packaging dependency manager like poetry, I find this fascinating, just super cool to play around with. Okay, let's go ahead, and what else can we do? Let's do poetry search. I feel like not enough arguments. Let's try a poetry search wildcard. Oh yeah, okay, so I kind of regretted that. So it looks like we can actually search. So we could say, hey, is there a requests package? Oh, there's a lot, all right. Yikes, there are so we could look for one. So if we wanted to, we would do requests. And again, it just has a ton of stuff. So I think we'd maybe have to use, I don't even know what we would do here, some regular expression, or maybe a string terminator to say, no, I just want requests. Doesn't work like that. Okay, we'll have to do some learning here. And then, the other thing that's really cool is we can do updates. We can go poetry update, and this is actually going to update all our dependencies. So we can update them all at a time and redistribute this. So super cool stuff. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up because we're about at the 20-minute mark, and I don't want to ramble on for too long. But thanks everyone for tuning in this video. I really enjoyed playing around with the poetry project. I hope you do as well. Please comment down below if there's anything you can share, or any nice to knows or cool facts or stories that you may even have about Python poetry. And all the information is in the description below. See everyone in the next video.